wasn't a dream. Dreams don't scrape your skin with thorns. Dreams don't freeze your fingertips. And dreams don't smell like this, like wet moss, distant smoke, and something decaying just out of sight. You wake up face down in dirt. Your cheek sticks to the ground, wet with dew, and something stickier. Your breath hangs in the air like fog, but it's not the air conditioning humming, it's silence. Real silence. Not the quiet hum of electronics or the muffled buzz of traffic through windows. This is silence so pure, it feels violent. You can hear the weight of your own heartbeat, the rustle of your clothes as you sit up, the hesitant snap of a twig nearby. You're not in your bed. You're not in your world. There's no phone service. Your lock screen glows for a moment. 3% battery. A photo from your old life stares back at you, some forgotten sunset you took for granted, and then it fades. The silence thickens. It's not night anymore, but it's not daylight either. A gray-blue fog drapes the forest like a forgotten curtain. Trees twist into unnatural shapes. The forest floor pulses with damp rot, the air thick with the smell of wood smoke and soil. And the cold, it doesn't just bite. It presses in, wraps around your ribs, and seeps into your bones. You try to stand, and the mud sucks at your shoes. Modern, unmistakable shoes. Sleek soles, bright stitching. You look down, and your heart stops. You can't look like this. Not here. You strip down, fast. Hide everything, synthetic nylon, elastic, metal zippers. You dig a shallow grave beneath a fallen log and bury your hoodie, your jeans, even your socks. You keep only what passes for natural, an undershirt that might resemble a tunic, boots caked in mud, and a threadbare cloak you found beside you, like a gift or a warning. There's a faint path through the trees, not a hiking trail, not gravel or pavement, just earth, beaten down by centuries of footfall. Your instincts scream to turn back, but back to where? And that's when it hits you. Not metaphorically, it hits like a brick through your chest. You've time traveled, not to a future of chrome and space stations, not to a glossy past of Renaissance fairs and shining nights. You've landed somewhere darker, more real, more dangerous. The English countryside, yes, but not the England you knew from storybooks. Not Shakespeare or castles or powdered wigs. This is something raw, cold, and unfiltered. You're in medieval England, maybe the 14th century, maybe earlier. There are no signs, no roads, no time machines or glowing portals. Just the forest, the silence, and the overwhelming weight of history pressing in from all sides. And you are completely, terrifyingly alone. You walk. It's slow at first. Every sound feels like a threat. A branch cracks somewhere to your right, and your whole body tenses. A bird calls out in the distance and you nearly bolt, but you keep walking, because there's nowhere else to go. Because maybe, just maybe, someone will find you. Someone human. The trees thin after what feels like hours. And you see Itcher, first real proof that you're not imagining this. Smoke, not a factory plume, not chimney stacks or barbecue haze. This is hearth smoke, wood burning low and steady. You move toward it, breath shallow, feet barely touching the earth. You reach the edge of a hill and look down, a village. Small, primitive, dozens of slanted roofs, all thatch and timber. Narrow paths, mud-churned and scattered with straw. Figures move slowly, wrapped in coarse wool, shoulders bent under burdens. There are no electric lights, no cars, paved roads, just smoke, mud, and motion. You crouch low and watch. They walk like they belong to the land, like they've never seen a world with plastic or power lines. Your breath catches. You can't go down there like this. Even half-dressed in mud-streaked linen, you're a ghost to them. A stranger in a world that doesn't welcome the unknown. You reach into your bag. Pull out your phone. Dead now. Useless. Your compass still spins weakly, pointing north. You consider burying it too. Anything too strange is a threat here. Anything they can't name, they'll fear. You shiver, not from cold, but from the impossible weight of it all. You've fallen through time, and there's no way back. You have no ID, no name that means anything, no place in this society, and in this world, to exist without a name, a household, a purpose, is to be prey. So you invent one. You are a pilgrim, a traveler seeking holy ground. You've come from the north, somewhere vague, somewhere far. You're tired, hungry, alone, but devout. You rehearse it in your head, over and over. Pilgrim, Glastonbury. You cross yourself, not out of belief, but instinct. You whisper prayers you don't believe to saints you've never met. It's not about faith, it's about survival. As you rise to your feet and begin your slow descent toward the village, the fear doesn't fade, but it sharpens, becomes something useful. You are no longer a lost traveler. You are someone with a story, and in medieval England, a good story is sometimes the only thing that can keep you alive. You reach the outskirts, a wooden gate, unmanned. Beyond it, a few cottages, and the slow movement of figures starting there. Day. You hesitate. You know the second you step through, your new life begins. And your old one, the one with Wi-Fi, hot showers, and convenience stores is gone. But you also know this. If you're going to survive this century, you can't stand still. You step through, and the world, old and waiting, swallows you whole. If this strange, haunting journey into the past gripped your imagination, if you felt that shiver of being truly lost in times, subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know, and keeps stories like this coming, to help you rest, imagine, and escape into history every night. Now, let me ask you something just for fun, and to see who's paying attention. What would you try to do first if you time traveled to the Middle Ages? Find the nearest church, and pretend to be a monk or nun, hide in the woods, and observe people for days. Before revealing yourself, comment below with your answer, or B, and let's see who among you would survive the first day. The first thing you notice about Lavenham is that it slouches. The buildings lean toward each other like old gossiping neighbors. Timber frames sag under the weight of rain and time. Some houses tilt forward, as though they're bowing to you. Others twist sideways, crooked with centuries of compromise. There's nothing symmetrical, nothing clean, nothing safe. From your hilltop view at dawn, the village is shrouded in smoke and thin fog, blurring the edges of reality. You descend toward it, every step sinking slightly in damp earth. The track you're following isn't a road, just a suggestion of one, carved by wheels, boots, and hooves over hundreds of years. The mud is slick, the ruts deep enough to snap ankles. There are no signs, no milestones, just the faint tang of human life growing stronger with each footfall. Firewood, livestock, bread, waste. Your body aches from the cold, from the fear. Your stomach is a hollow drumbeat, but something more urgent pushes you forward, curiosity wrapped in terror. What will you find? Will they believe you? Will they see through you? As you near the village, the first sounds of morning stir the air. Roosters crow from hidden yards. Wood clatters as shutters are thrown open. A goat bleats somewhere too close. A child laughs, followed by a scolding shout in a language you almost recognize but can't quite follow. It's English, but it's not your English. It's a living, breathing dialect, rough with history and thick with consonants. The gate at the edge of town isn't guarded. It isn't even a gate in the strictest sense, just two crooked posts with a rusted chain between them, hanging low, enough to step over. You pause for the briefest second, then cross into their world. You blend into the shadows of early morning, staying low and quiet. Your hair is tied up in a ragged knot. Your clothes are smudged, plain, passable. You keep your head down, eyes on the muddy ground, but you feel their eyes on you anyway. Lavenham isn't large, maybe 40 buildings, all clustered like survivors of a storm. The main lane curves like a question mark. The houses are packed close, so close their roofs nearly touch. The road is little more than compacted muck, littered with hay and dung. Chickens peck at the edges. A pig grunts from behind a cart. There's no plan here, no city grid, no zoning laws, just the slow accretion of life over generations. You slip into the flow of villagers beginning their day. A man with a bundle of sticks nods to you absently. A woman carrying a pail wrinkles her nose but says nothing. 2 barefoot children chase each other with sticks, shrieking. They stop when they see you. One points, whispering to the other. You glance away. Your heart beats faster. They're noticing. They're already noticing. You pass a stall, if it can be called that, where a woman stands behind a low table covered with loaves of bread, so dark they look like bricks. The smell makes your stomach lurch. It's not sweet, not yeasty. It's coarse and sharp, like wet stone and barley. You hesitate. The woman watches you. No coin, I see, she says flatly. You open your mouth, but think better of it. A simple shake of the head. She snorts, then move on. Pilgrim, pilgrim. The word stings, but it's the mask you've chosen. You nod, murmuring something like a blessing, just Latin sounding enough to be safe hand. Keep walking. The village opens slightly ahead, revealing what passes for a market square. A few stalls, some crates turned over as tables, baskets of root, vegetables and strips of drying meat. There's no hustle here, no shouting vendors, just slow, measured transactions, bartered glances, and the occasional argument that builds and dies in muttered curses. You take it all in, trying not to gape. A man sharpens knives on a wheel. A boy carries firewood twice his height. A woman kneads dough with knuckles like hammers. Everyone has a role. Everyone moves like they belong. And you don't. You're too tall, too clean, even covered in grime. Your posture is wrong. You walk like someone expecting the ground to cooperate. And worst of all, you look around too much. Like someone who has never seen this before, because you haven't. Then it happens. Chaos, small and sudden. 2 goats burst from between 2 houses, bleeding madly, kicking up mud. Behind them, an old man gives chase, shouting something hoarse and unintelligible. The animals veer toward the market. People scatter. 1 goat darts toward you. Instinct takes over. You move sideways, arms wide. The goat skids to a stop, startled. You grab its collar, leather frayed, warm end, hold firm. The second one crashes into a crate, sending turnips flying. The old man reaches you, panting, face red, eyes wide with disbelief. You hand him the goat. Bless you, he breathes. You just nod, still breathless. From a pouch at his belt, he pulls a small crust of bread, dry, dark, and slightly warm. He presses it into your hand. For kindness, he says. Pilgrim, you whisper, unsure what else to offer. He nods solemnly and limps away, goat in tow. You stare at the bread like it's gold. Your first true exchange in this world. Not money, not information, but kindness and a little food. You sit on a nearby step and eat slowly. The bread is dense, crumbly, and bitter, but it fills the emptiness in your gut, quiets the shaking in your hands, and for the first time since waking in the woods, you feel something like hope. You watch people pass. They don't stare anymore. You're just another face now. Another tired soul wrapped in dirt and prayer. You test your voice once more with a passerby, a middle-aged man with a fur-lined collar. Peace be with you, you say quietly. He glances at you, tilts his head, then keeps walking. It's not a greeting, not really, but it's not a rejection either. You exhale, long and slow, Lavenham has not welcomed you. Not yet, but it hasn't pushed you out either. And in a world like this, that's something. You make your way toward the edge of the square, where smoke drifts from a blackened forge. You're not here to work yet, not to speak, just to see. A boy watches you from behind a post. He doesn't speak, just stares. And you know, this is how it begins. You are no longer a stranger from another time. You're a shadow in their story now, a figure with no past, no name, and only the story you invent next to protect you. You walk on, already rewriting your truth in your mind. You are a pilgrim from the north. You are walking to Glastonbury. You are here for penance, and if you can keep walking, keep speaking softly, keep avoiding the questions that matter, you might just survive. By your third day in Lavenham, the story begins to write itself not from truth, but necessity. You don't speak unless spoken to, and when you do, your answers are carefully chosen, vague in all the right places, polished in all the wrong ones. The words aren't your armor. The lie is, I'm a pilgrim, you say, again and again, until it becomes less of a fabrication and more of a rhythm. From the north, on my way to Glastonbury, for penance. 3 lines, enough to satisfy the curious, not enough to invite the dangerous. No one ever asks what the penance is. That's the secret beauty of religion in this world. It allows you to hide behind guilt like a curtain. Everyone has sinned. Everyone needs forgiveness. Your sin is nameless. Your journey, holy. That's all they need to know. The widow who owns the small barn where you've slept for 2 nights doesn't ask questions. Her name is Edith. She speaks with a slow cadence, every word weighed down by years. Her eyes are not cruel, only tired. Her back stoops when she bends to collect kindling, but her hands are steady when she pours water into your chipped wooden bowl each morning. She lets you stay in the barn in exchange for silence and labor, mostly wood chopping and carrying buckets. You agree before she even finishes the offer. The barn is barely shelter. The roof leaks when it rains, and the hay is riddled with fleas, but it is safer than the road. There is food here, even if it is a crust of something blackened and dry. And there is peace, or at least the absence of threat. Edith has a grandson named Alden. He is 6, perhaps 7, small for his age, with eyes that see too much. He watches you with a mixture of suspicion and fascination, like a stray cat that isn't sure whether you're a threat or just another creature passing through. One evening, you catch him mimicking your walk in the dirt outside the barn. You say nothing. Neither does he. That night, he falls sick. The fever comes fast, shivers, then heat. Edith wraps him in rags and mutters prayers under her breath. You offer what little you know cool cloth, slow sips of water, a lullaby your grandmother used to sing. It's in a language no one here speaks, but rhythm matters more than meaning. Edith watches you from the shadows of the hearth. She doesn't thank you, but the next morning, when the fever breaks and Alden's breathing steadies, she tears her last hunk of rye bread in half and hands you the larger piece. That's how trust is given here, not in words, but in quiet offerings. She asks you then to tell a story. You freeze. Your first instinct is to refuse, but Alden is listening, his small face pale and eager, and there's something else, something deeper, the hunger for escape. Not from hunger or illness, but from the weight of their lives. So you begin. You speak. Slowly, cautiously, you tell a version of a tale from your world reshaped, dulled of its modern edges. A story of a city made of glass, where horses run without hooves, and people speak to one another across miles with only their voices. You leave out the details that would mark you as mad. You fill the gaps with wonder instead. Edith doesn't interrupt. Alden giggles once, then coughs, then leans his head against her shoulder and sleeps. That night, you learn a truth more valuable than gold. Here, stories are a kind of currency. Not the kind that buys bread or shelter, but something older, deeper. They buy attention. They buy safety. They make you less of a threat and more of a curiosity. And in a place where difference is dangerous, curiosity is a small mercy. You begin to practice them like spells. Not just bedtime tales, but narratives, versions of your life that shift slightly, depending on who asks. To the priest in the square. You say your journey began when your cousin fell ill, and a vision told you to seek penance. To the baker who gives you burnt crusts from the oven floor. You say you're walking alone because your brother died in a raid and left no other family. To Alden, you say nothing. He invents your story for you. She's from far away, he tells a neighbor boy, where the stars fall like rain. You let that one live. You find yourself scribbling at night when the wind howls through the barn. Slats and Edith is asleep in the margins of a scrap of cloth and the inside cover of your one surviving notebook. You write things down, not just words or memories, but observations. What makes people laugh? What makes them pause? Which saints they mention when they're in pain? What silence means in different mouths? It becomes a kind of religion, a discipline of learning how to vanish in plain sight. Because here, you must always be someone, just not yourself. One evening you help mend a fence. The wood is splintered and soft, and the nails you hammer in bend like paper. A neighbor, a gruff man named Walter, watches you struggle. He says nothing, but the next day, he hands you a better hammer. No explanation, no smile, just a silent exchange. He calls you pilgrim like it's a title, like it's enough, and it becomes enough. You are the pilgrim, the quiet one, the one who doesn't speak unless needed, but when you do, your words are strange and heavy with meanings they can't quite touch. You carry a wooden token now, given by a friar who believed your story more than you do. It's small, carved with a cross and a scalloped shell sign of St. James. It means you're protected, at least in theory. It means if something happens to you, someone might ask questions. But more importantly, it makes you visible to those who want to believe, and invisible to those who don't care. You wear it around your neck, hidden beneath your tunic, like a charm, like a lie you've told so well, you're starting to believe it yourself. One afternoon, Edith catches you staring into the fire. She says softly, "You've walked far." You nod. "Far enough." She studies you. You don't talk much. You meet her gaze. Talking's expensive. She considers this, then nods, satisfied. Outside, the rain begins again, soft and steady. Alden curls beside the fire, asleep. The barn creaks with the weight of wind. You think of your real home, of light switches and microwave dinners, of email and street noise, of your own name. And for a moment, you ache for it all. But it passes. Because here, now, you are something else. Not who you were, not even who you want to be, but someone who belongs just enough not to be questioned. And in this world, that is everything. The first time you realize the full danger of speaking is when you try to buy an egg. It seems simple, a transaction. You approach a stall where a woman stands behind a basket filled with brown speckled eggs, their shells dulled with dust. You point. She looks at you. Her mouth twists into a question, not just confusion, but suspicion. "What you mean, pilgrim?" You blink. "Egg," you say, clearly, slowly. She stares harder. "Say that again." You hesitate. "Egg, just one." Her expression shifts. She leans in, to speak queer. The word hangs in the air, heavier than you'd expect. You don't need a translation. It's the tone that matters. She doesn't mean strange in a charming way. She means dangerous, foreign, other. You back away, hands half raised, muttering something about penance. She mutters something back, possibly a prayer, possibly a curse. You don't get the egg. You learn quickly after that. The language isn't just unfamiliar, it's a living, mutating thing, slippery and regional, weighted with nuance. You thought you'd prepared. You watched documentaries, practiced Old English, listened to linguistic breakdowns on your phone while folding laundry. None of it helps. They don't speak Old English. Not here, not now. This is Middle English sort of, but not Chaucer's textbook poetry. This is the unfiltered kind. Gritty, nasal, tangled with Norman French and local dialects. So thick you sometimes wonder if they're speaking through gravel. You walk past two men arguing over firewood. One shouts something that sounds like B, the Daft, or B, the Flemish. You don't respond. You don't even look. You walk on, heart pounding, praying that ignorance looks more like humility than threat. That night, you try to mimic. You eavesdrop on Walter, the gruff neighbor who gave you the hammer, as he trades with a tanner. You listen to cadence, repetition. Which words end conversations? Which ones start them? You mimic his intonation when you greet Edith the next morning. Good morrow. She eyes you, then nods. It worked. Barely. Language here is not a tool. It's a test. Every word you say is an audition for belonging. The wrong tense, the wrong idiom, and you're outed not just as foreign, but potentially dangerous, suspicious, possibly cursed. You keep your words short. 3 syllables is luxury. You learn to nod a lot, smile faintly, repeat phrases you hear, even when you don't understand them. They say well met. You say well met. You say well met. They say fair keep you. You echo it back. It's not conversation, it's mimicry, but it works. Sometimes you make a mistake in the blacksmith's shop. You're trying to trade for a new belt strap, and when he names a price, you say, okay. The air goes still. He stares at you. What say you? He demands. Louder. You scramble. Very well. You correct. I. He doesn't answer, but his grip on the iron bar tightens. You pay quickly and leave, the strap barely in your hand, before the door slams behind you. Later, in the barn, you practice new words under your breath, like prayers. You write them in the dirt. You whisper them to Alden when he's half asleep. You use them in stories when Edith lets you speak. One afternoon, you ask a baker if he has yesterday's bread. You don't say yesterday. You say yestern. You saw someone else use it. He laughs. Pilgrim's learning, he says. Almost kindly. You leave with a half-dash loaf. You begin to understand that language is tied to class here. The rich speak differently than the poor. The merchants borrow French words. The peasants use rougher, older terms. Even how someone says bread tells you who they are. You say the wrong thing to a servant girl one day. Just a compliment. Something gentle, something you thought was harmless. Her face hardens. She turns and walks away without a word. Later, you realize the phrase you used has double meaning in her dialect. You wonder if she thinks you insulted her, or worse, flirted with her. You'll never know. You spend the rest of the week terrified of talking. When the friar visits again, checking on the pilgrims in the village, you stay quiet. He greets you in Latin. You nod, repeat the only phrase you know, Pax vobiscum. He asks where you studied. You feign a cough. He moves on. You start playing mute around strangers. It's easier. They fill in the blanks themselves. Penance, vow of silence, injury. It doesn't matter. Silence, in this world, is safer than error. But silence has a cost. You miss laughter, jokes, real jokes. You hear them around the fire, sometimes men laughing, until they cough, women giggling at something shared under breath. You never know the punchline. You pretend to laugh. They sometimes give you a strange look, but they don't push. You wonder what it would feel like to really understand. One morning, a boy in the square drops an apple. It rolls to your feet. You pick it up, hand it back. He thanks you in a rush of words you almost understand. You try to say you're welcome. What comes out is something else. His brow furrows. Are the Welsh? He asks. You pause. No. Strange. Tongue, he says, running off. Later, you practice saying you're welcome 10 different ways. You settle on just a nod. You realize something terrible. Your own language is slipping. You struggle to recall simple words from your world. The right name for a type of tree. A phrase you once used every day. It's not memory loss. It's replacement. Your brain is shedding what it doesn't need. It's choosing survival. You find your voice only in stories now. When Alden asks for tales, you use your own cadence, your own rhythm. The children don't mind. They like the way you speak your pauses, your soft words. It makes the stories feel distant, magical. You hide in that. It's the only time you feel close to who you were by the end of the month. You've developed your own dialective fusion of borrowed phrases, mimicked tones, and practiced responses. You still can't have a real conversation, but you can pass. That's what matters. You've learned the most important rule of all. In this world, every word is a gamble, and you're running out of coin, so you hoard your speech. You speak less. Listen more. You let others assume, project, explain, and when they do, you nod. Always nod, because the moment they stop trying to understand you, that's when you disappear. And here, disappearing is the safest thing you can do. The cold teaches you things you never knew you could learn. Not the chill of winter mornings in the city, or the bite of an office, a sea turned too high. This cold is something older, something that presses against your skin with a silent authority. It doesn't ask permission. It just moves in and stays. The kind of cold that makes your bones feel porous, like the wind can pass right through them. Your days now begin before the sun finishes rising. Each morning you wake to a faint shimmer of light slipping through the cracks in the barn walls. Edith has already been up for hours, moving with the slow, efficient pace of someone who's spent decades learning to beat the frost to the fire. Your breath clouds in front of you as you move. There's no running water, no place to warm your hands except the hearth, and even that you have to earn. So you chop wood, or you carry water from the well that feels farther away each morning. You scrape ice off the wooden pails with your fingernails. You haul sacks of root vegetables that seem to double in weight with every step. Your shoulders ache in ways they never did in your other life. But you don't complain. In this world, pain is ordinary. Everyone is cold. Everyone is hungry. Everyone is tired. No one says so. They just keep moving. And if you stop, if you fold your arms and try to hold in your own warmth like it belongs to you alone, the world takes that too. Walter, the neighbor, who gave you the hammer, watches you one morning from across the road. You're splitting firewood, your hands raw and red, the axe too big for your grip. He doesn't speak. He just walks over, takes the axe from your hands, and silently shows you a better way to angle the swing. He hands it back, nods once, and walks off. You don't need words to understand. That was kindness. Later that same day, as your fingers sting from carrying bundles of kindling into Edith's yard, a woman you've never seen before passes you on the path. She's small and hunched, with a scarf wrapped tight around her jaw. She doesn't look at you, but she stops, reaches into her apron, and hands you something wrapped in linen. It's bread, still warm. You hold it like it might crumble. You look up, ready to thank her. She's already gone. You sit on the ground and eat it slowly, letting the heat soak into your palms first. The crust is hard, the inside dense, but it's the best thing you've tasted in weeks. It doesn't fill you, it isn't enough for that, but it touches something else. A place inside you that hasn't been fed since the day you woke up here. That night, Edith says, "You were quiet. That's good." You just nod. She's sewing something with thick, coarse thread, mending an old cloak. You offer to help, even though you've never sewn anything before. She hands you a needle. You stab your finger on the second stitch. She laughs. Not loudly, just a puff of air from her nose. You're not from near. You freeze. She says nothing more. The next morning, you are sent to the forest. Agnes, another neighbor, needs firewood and herbs. Edith tells her, "You're strong." Agnes looks you over, unimpressed. She gives you a sack and a list you can't read, but explains it aloud. Yarrow, mugwort, chickweed, comfrey, plantain. You repeat the names under your breath like a song, like a charm. The forest is colder than the village, but quieter, too. The air is still. The trees feel old enough to judge you, but not cruelly. You walk slowly, watching the ground, listening for the names you've been taught. Agnes moves through the woods like she belongs to it. Her steps barely break twigs. She touches plants like old friends. You try to imitate her, but fail. Your hands are clumsy. Your eyes miss the obvious. She doesn't scold you. She just picks up what you miss. You find a patch of nettles and grab them bare-handed. Your skin flares with stings. "You'll learn," she says. That's all. You do learn. Not just about herbs, about pace, about silence, about noticing the way the moss grows on one side of the tree, how to hear a squirrel before you see it, how to tell a patch of safe mushrooms from the kind that might kill you. By noon, your hands are covered in dirt and welts. The sack is half full. You eat a crust of rye bread that Edith packed. It's dry, nearly impossible to swallow. You chew it for what feels like an hour. There's a stream nearby. You drink with cupped hands. The water is so cold it hurts your teeth. You think about bacteria, about how this might be the last clean water you ever drink. But it tastes like life, and you drink more. As you rise, Agnes hands you a pouch of herbs your own harvest, sorted and tied. "Not bad," she says. Her eyes are kind, even if her voice is not. On the walk back, she tells you about her sister, who died of fever, about the boy who once lived in the woods and ate nothing but roots and lived to 90, about how some people hear the forest whisper back. You listen. You don't respond. She doesn't expect you to. When you return to the village, the sun is lower, the sky tinged with fire. You hand the bundle to Edith. She inspects it, then sets it aside. You go to your corner of the barn and lie down without a word. Your hands burn, your legs ache, but your heart feels a little less hollow. Over the following days, you continue to work, you carry, you clean. You watch and listen and keep your eyes low. Sometimes Walter tosses you a hunk of cheese, too hard to bite but edible, if soaked in broth. Sometimes Agnes shares a few extra leaves she doesn't need. Sometimes Edith sits closer to the fire than usual and lets you do the same. None of it is generous. None of it is sentimental. It's survival, but it's also grace. One night, you find Alden curled up outside the barn, shivering, mumbling in his sleep. You wrap your cloak around him and carry him back to the hearth. Edith doesn't wake, but in the morning, she hands you a bowl of porridge without being asked. "You'll need your strength," she says. It's the first full sentence she's given you in a while. You eat slowly, eyes on the flickering flame, and wonder when you last felt this tired, not just physically, but in the soul-deep way that comes from carrying too many versions of yourself, from not knowing who you're supposed to be, just who you have to pretend to be next. But here, in the quiet, with the warmth of the fire and the ache of honest labor in your limbs, you feel something else, too, a kind of belonging, not because you fit. You never will, but because you're still here, because someone gave you bread when you had nothing, because someone showed you how to swing an axe without breaking your wrist, because someone trusted you with their child, and because in this world, kindness isn't loud, it's quiet, it's subtle, and it often comes wrapped in dirt, in calluses and silence. But when it appears, when it offers you a hunk of bread, or a nod by the fire, it is everything. There comes a point when the panic fades, not because you've found comfort, but because exhaustion numbs everything else. You no longer startle at footsteps outside the barn. You no longer dream of rescue. Instead, your body adapts, as all bodies do. The rhythms of this place begin to press into your skin like a brand. You wake before the birds now. You don't need Edith's voice or the creak of her door to stir. Your body knows. You stretch in silence, feeling the cold in your joints before you move. The straw beneath you is still damp, but you no longer notice the way it clings to your clothes. You've stopped wondering about softness. The mornings are routine. You haul water from the well, check the animals, split wood, sweep ash from the hearth. You say little. You listen more. Agnes grunts her approval when you carry double loads of kindling. Walter occasionally nods in your direction. Alden chases chickens and tells stories to the wind. Lavenham continues around you, not with fanfare, but with inevitability. It breathes, it eats, it sleeps. People die, and no one marks the day. A woman vanishes, and the village does not pause. Another arrives thin, coughing, eyes hollow, and is taken in without a word. There is no sentiment here, only motion. You occupy a space, now a shape, a name, a function, but not a life. You are seen, you are ignored, you are used, and you survive. That's the middle. The hardest part of any journey isn't the beginning, not the shock, the terror, the scramble for identity. It isn't the ending either, because you haven't found that yet. It's the in-between. The long stretch of monotony and quiet desperation, where you stop counting the days, because you're no longer sure what you're counting toward. You are between two worlds, and both feel like they belong to someone else. Sometimes, when you catch your reflection in the surface of a basin, or the frost-glazed glass of a window pane, you don't recognize yourself. Your face is leaner, your eyes sharper. You've aged without time. The lines around your mouth aren't from laughter, they're from bracing against the wind. You speak less now, and not just because of the danger. You've forgotten how to speak freely. Every sentence is measured, every response filtered through the language you've adopted. You dream in strange accents. Your thoughts are laced with the cadence of this place. You're becoming fluent in silence, but not numb. That's what surprises you. In the quiet, you start to feel things more vividly. A loaf of warm bread becomes a miracle. A patch of sunlight on the floorboards feels holy. When Alden falls and scrapes his knee and doesn't cry, your chest tightens like you've lost something. When Edith places a hand on your shoulder without speaking, you nearly flinch from kindness, not threat. One evening, the village gathers. It's not a holiday, not anything official, just an excuse, a shared meal by the communal fire. Mead passed, from hand to hand. Children with dirty cheeks chasing one another through smoke and laughter. Walter brings a lute with only 4 strings. He plays the same melody over and over. Agnes sings beneath her breath. Someone claps. Someone tells a story so crude you almost laugh aloud. You sit on the edge of the circle, unsure if you're meant to be there, but no one tells you to leave. Edith nods when you catch her eye. Alden hands you a small, misshapen cake he made himself. It tastes like ash and sugar. You laugh quietly, but real. Someone asks where you come from. You lie, easily now. A small village near the northern coast. Gone now, you say. Fire, or plague, or something worse. They nod. That's enough. In the flickering firelight, you feel less like a ghost, and more like a person. The night stretches on. Walter plays until his fingers ache. Agnes leans against a barrel and hums. The children fall asleep one by one. Edith wraps Alden in a blanket and carries him home. You stay, just for a while longer. It's not joy, exactly. But it's not sorrow either. It's something quieter. The feeling of being tolerated, included, even if not embraced. It's the understanding that no one here has space for your grief, but they won't deny you your breath. You walk home in the dark, your feet steady on paths you no longer need to memorize. The stars above are brighter than they ever were in your old life. There's no haze here, no electricity to dull the sky. You pause and look up, just for a moment. You remember, distantly, the names of constellations: Orion, Cassiopeia, the Big Dipper. Here, they don't have those names. Or maybe they do, but in a language you've yet to hear. Still, they shine, they wait. They do not belong to one time. You sleep better that night. The next day, nothing changes. There is still wood to chop, water to carry, animals to feed. Edith gives you a cloth to mend. You stab your finger again. She doesn't laugh this time, but she doesn't take the cloth away either. You pass a man on the road. He asks you the time. You hesitate. You have no watch, no sundial. You guess. He nods, satisfied. You realize then how fully you've left one world without arriving in the next. You don't belong here. Not really. But neither do you belong to what came before. That life, the one with hot showers and emails and plastic, is faded now. Blurred. The details slip when you try to grab them. You remember your name, of course. You remember the sound of your phone alarm and the feel of sheets pulled too tight. But they no longer feel true. Not in this body. Not in this place. This is the middle. The purgatory of transformation, where the past no longer defines you, and the future remains out of reach. And in this silence, you find strange comfort, because it means you're still alive. There comes a moment, quiet, imperceptible, when you realize no one is watching you anymore. It doesn't happen all at once. There's no grand shift, no sudden silence or suspicious glare. It creeps in like twilight, so slowly that you don't notice the shadows lengthening until the day is gone. At first, it feels like loss. Then, it feels like safety. You're no longer the curious stranger in the square. You're not the pilgrim from the north when someone asks where you came from. You're just someone who lives near Edith Barn, who carries buckets, who sometimes mumbles stories to Alden, who passes Walter tools without being told. You are a background figure now, a pair of hands, a bowed head, a shape among other shapes. And that is your greatest protection. To be invisible here is to survive. The world you've fallen into is not built for strangeness. It is built for patterns, for predictability. People are known by what they do. The woman with the limp always sells onions. The boy with the crooked teeth always sweeps the church steps. The man with the broad shoulders always fixes wheels. Everyone belongs to a rhythm, so you make yourself into a rhythm too. You pick the same route to the well each morning. You carry the same kindling in the same bundle. You sit in the same spot during gatherings and never draw attention to your silence. You nod when people speak to you. You reply only when safe. And you never, ever start a conversation. You stop using full sentences. You adopt the dialect you hear most. You shorten your words, clip your vowels. You stop saying I unless necessary. Over time, you are no longer interesting. You are no longer a question mark. You are just someone who is always there. And the less people notice you, the less they ask. You begin to see the world differently. 2. You notice how the widow down the lane always touches the same stone when she passes the church. How Walter scratches his chin before every lie. How Agnes counts her steps between herb patches like a chant. You learn to see patterns not because you are curious, but because knowing them means belonging. Even if that belonging is an illusion. And yet, even as you vanish into the crowd, you carry the unbearable weight of knowing who you used to be. You remember your full name, your street address, the passwords that once opened parts of your life. But they are becoming less real with every passing day. They feel like dreams you wrote down years ago. Distant, strange, a little embarrassing. Sometimes you say your name out loud, just to hear it, to feel it vibrate in your chest. But even that feels foreign now. You are not that person anymore. You are the quiet one who knows how to mend rope and start fires without matches. You are the one who avoids the market on feast days. the one who knows that speaking to the friar too long invites questions you can't afford to answer. You are no one, and it is a kind of freedom. It is a freedom you would have feared in your old life, the idea of being erased, of going unnoticed. But here, it is survival. Invisibility is armor. Obscurity is shelter. You become so adept at disappearing that you stop needing to hide. You're not pretending anymore. You simply are. Until one day, someone says your name. Not your real one. The one you gave them. Pilgrim, it's Edith, she says. It's softly, while pouring water into a pot. Pilgrim, she says, like it's not a name, but a presence. Alden wants to know if you'll walk with him today. You nod. She doesn't say thank you. She doesn't explain. She just hands you a crust of bread and turns back to the fire. You take Alden's hand. He talks the entire walk about nothing and everything. He asks questions you can't answer, then answers them himself. You say maybe a lot. You say, perhaps. He's content with those. You realize, slowly, that being forgotten doesn't mean being alone. It means being allowed to exist without scrutiny. It means becoming part of the landscape. Later, you help Walter lift a cart that's slipped into the ditch. He grunts. Doesn't ask where you came from. Doesn't ask why you're strong enough to lift your side. Just nods once when it's done. Good, he says. Not to you, just to the air. You've become part of the air. That night, as you lie in the barn, your hands sore, your muscles humming with effort, you realize you're not pretending anymore. This is who you are now. And when you think of going back to where you came from, back to whatever might remain, you feel something strange. You feel fear, because in that world, you were someone, you were seen, you were expected to succeed, to perform, to be better than your last mistake. Here, you are simply allowed to be. It's a fragile freedom. It could disappear with a single question, a single misstep. But for now, in this suspended moment, you are untouched, and you understand the strange, terrible beauty of being forgotten. You understand that in a world where survival depends on sameness, becoming invisible is the only way to truly live. You thought you'd finally mastered invisibility. You thought you'd woven your quiet pattern so tight that no one would notice you until the morning you didn't. It began as an ordinary day. You woke before dawn, as usual, and carried water to the barn while the world was still wrapped in gray silence. Edith and Agnes were already busy. Alden was asleep under his blanket. The village was still becoming itself. Your heart was a steady hum when Walter appeared, pushing a cart down the path. Morning, he said, nodding before passing without pause. You dipped your head and turned back to your chores, invisible, but present. Later, you carried a plank from the old mill to repair the well. As you reached the market square, where a few early risers were selling roots and dried fish, you saw a child drop a small item into the dust. It rolled, winked in the sun, and caught your eye. Curiosity, that old whisper, nudged you. You knelt, scooped it up, and held it in your hand. It was round, small, smooth, and inlaid with metal you didn't recognize. You turned it over in your palm. The metal glinted a familiar soft glow. Your fingers trembled. A compass. The device you'd hidden weeks ago, buried under roots in the woods, just in case. The one thing that could blow every careful step you'd taken to vanish. The one item that couldn't be explained. It wasn't a charm or relic. It was a piece of another world. A child's fingers brushed yours. She was small, barefoot, hair, matted, curiosity bright in her eyes. "What's that?" she whispered, voice hushed, as if fearing the dust might hear. Your pulse spiked. You looked around. Someone would see if you weren't fast. Someone like the local friar, who passed through the square each day before the first bell. You slipped the compass into your pouch, pretended to wipe your hands on your tunic. The girl backed away, eyes wide. You tried to smile, but it felt like you'd misread the moment. Curiosity is dangerous here. Interesting people get noticed. Nobody wants to be examined. That afternoon, the friar came. His robes were iron gray. His eyes were too bright. He greeted Edith politely at the barn, then nodded toward you. The moment he spoke your name, you froze. He didn't smile. He didn't offer a blessing. He asked, quietly, "Where did you travel from?" Your answer came out clipped, cautious, from afar. He frowned, studying you in a way no one else had. You felt a line drawn between you, a thin brush of suspicion. He asked more. "What saints do you pray to? How did you survive the illness? What relic do you carry?" You stammered, words tangled. He watched your hands, waited for the meaning behind your reluctance. He asked about your compass, you realized. He didn't say it the word, but you felt it in his gaze. You forced yourself to stay calm, double quotes, just, penance, you said, voice low, from north to Glastonbury. But the compass pressed in your mind. You had it buried, but he didn't need proof. In this world, suspicion is enough. Later that night, you crept into the woods. The stars were sharp, the air cold. You knelt beside the spot where your hidden things lay. You dug through frost-hardened earth and reclaimed everything the compass. Your hidden matches, the protein bar you'd kept. Holding them, your heart lurched. You buried them again. Deeper, each shovel of earth felt like burying a part of yourself. But to keep your story, you had to cut ties. Back at the barn, Edith noticed something was off. She watched your face while you tended the fire. "Pilgrim," she whispered. You nodded. You couldn't speak dinner into your mouth. When Agnes came later, she just placed a cloth-wrapped bundle of herbs next to yours. They both watched while you didn't ask questions. They didn't ask either. That night, as you lay in the straw, the edges of your identity blurred. The compass was yours, but you gave it up. The compass was part of your world, but it couldn't live here. You realized the precise cost of curiosity. It makes you stand out. It draws eyes. It provokes questions you cannot answer. And in a world where being unknown is safety, you could not afford to be interesting, so you let that part of yourself die. You slept without the weight of your future in your pocket, but your mind carried it all night. When dawn came, you rose again. The world expected you to be quiet. You would comply. You stopped counting the days. It happens gradually, not with decision, but with weariness. The marks on the beam above your bed blur together. Was yesterday the 49th or the 50th? Does it matter? Because this is not a journey anymore. This is your life. The mornings still begin with cold. The ache in your fingers doesn't ease, but it no longer feels unusual. The stiffness in your spine is a companion now. You don't fight the discomfort. You move with it. The barn, the frost, the sound of chickens, the smoke from Agnes's hearth. They are constants. They tell you the day has begun. What once terrified you now feels familiar. The winding path through the woods. The language in half-formed syllables. The faces of people who do not know you, but who no longer see you as strange. You've become background. You've become part of the rhythm. And with that invisibility comes an unexpected stillness. Not comfort, not happiness, but a kind of peace, born from repetition. There is no more panic, no more lies to refine. You are the lie, fully lived now. The pilgrim, the helper, the listener. You have become the story you told, and in doing so, you no longer need to perform. One evening, Alden asks if you'll stay forever. You look at him. He's taller than when you met, stronger. His cheeks aren't as hollow. He knows more now. He carries his own bucket, and yet, he still looks at you with that open-hearted belief that only children can hold. You want to answer yes, but you don't, because forever is not yours to promise. Eve. You no longer asks about your past. She never really did, but now she doesn't even glance at you with curiosity. You chop wood, you mend rope, You tend her fire when her joints ache. She lets you sleep longer on cold mornings. That is the shape of trust here. Agnes once left a whole loaf of bread on your step. She said nothing. You never asked why. You left a pouch of dried mint for her 2 days later. That was the conversation. In another world you would have needed words. Here, silence is fluent, but the cost of survival is not silence. It's erasure. You no longer dream in your old voice. When you try to recall the names of streets, friends, moments from your other life, they come to you dimmed, faded around the edges. You remember colors, the smell of shampoo, the buzz of a phone in your pocket, but the details are soft now. Sometimes, when you're alone, you whisper your real name aloud, just to hear it echo in your skull. But even that feels dishonest, like wearing a costume that no longer fits. You've learned that living here isn't about thriving. It's about enduring, and endurance demands sacrifice. You've sacrificed identity. You've sacrificed language. You've sacrificed time. But in return, you've gained this: the quiet, the stillness, the feeling of being safe, even if only by being overlooked. You have earned a place, however small, in a world that could have killed you 100 different ways. And that means something. One day, a merchant's son asks if you've always lived in Lavenham. You hesitate, not from fear, from surprise. Yes, you say softly. Long enough. He nods and walks away. That's it. No suspicion. No questions. You realize in that moment, they have accepted your existence, not with welcome, not with celebration, but with that ancient, quiet tolerance that allows communities to breathe without tearing. You are no longer new. You are no longer unknown. You are simply here. One night, while tending the fire, you think about home, your real home, the way the floor warmed in the morning, the sound of your neighbor's radio through the walls, the glowing numbers on a microwave. You wonder if someone there remembers you, if time moves the same way in that world, and you feel the sting of it lost sharp and sudden. But then Alden sneezes in his sleep, and Edith sighs softly in the dark, and the wind whistles through the cracks in the barn walls, and you are pulled back. This is not peace in the way the old world taught you. This peace is not warm. It's not comfortable. It's not gentle. It's earned. It's muddy. It's bruised. It's full of things unspoken. But it's real, and it belongs to you now. You lie back, your body pressed to straw and earth, and close your eyes. You have survived, not by conquering, not by winning, but by enduring, unseen and intact. That is the cost, and that is the triumph. You have traveled with them through cold, mud, fear, and silence. You've watched them wake in dark woods with 3% battery left and no way home. You've seen them shed their modern clothes, bury their compass, and step into Lavenham with nothing but a story. Pilgrim, Glastonbury, from the north. They survived the first fearful hours in that disoriented moment at the village gate. They weren't heroic. They weren't brilliant. They were quiet. They watched and learned. They offered help to a man chasing goats, and he gave them bread. That act unexpected and small anchored them in a world not of their making. With each lie they told, each story spun about penance or travel, they crafted their new identity. It was a fragile bond, held together by borrowed phrases, mimicked gestures, half-understood phrases, but it worked. Their story, woven with humility and respect, became their shield. Language was their greatest trial and their greatest lesson. Every word they spoke was a gamble. One wrong syllable, "You're Welsh," another turns a compliment into insult. So they learned to speak less, to listen more, to borrow words like tools. They watched Walter's nods, Agnes's grunts, and Edith's cautious glances to see if they were speaking right. They realized that, in a world where words can hurt, silence can heal. Their days became rituals. Wake, carry pails, chop wood, mend tools, gather herbs, repeat. They built trust through sweat and repetition. They learned when Edith poured water into their bowl, it wasn't casual kindness, it was acceptance. When Walter handed them a better hammer, it wasn't generosity, it was trust. When Agnes alone left fresh bread on their doorstep, it wasn't sympathy, it was connection. And in return, they gave what they could: effort, attention, small acts of service. They became part of the rhythm. There was a moment when their curiosity almost cost them everything. When a child dropped their hidden compass, rescued it from dust, and sparked a chain reaction that led to the friar's questions. Where did you come from? What relics do you carry? That was the moment they realized how dangerous being interesting could be. They buried the compass again and buried a piece of themselves along with it. They had become invisible. Their story carried them through. They were reliable, silent hands. They belonged enough not to be questioned, not to be hunted, but not so much that they lost themselves. They existed, and they endured. In the final days, they stopped counting time. They stopped dreaming of escape. They had slipped between two worlds. The one they left and the one they entered down belonged to neither completely, but they belonged. Somewhere, there was comfort in that. Not perfect, not romantic, just survival shaped with honesty and quiet endurance. They had paid their toll. They had lost parts of themselves, their language, their certainty, their sense of belonging back home. But they had gained something else: resilience, compassion, perspective. They learned that invisibility can be armor, that kindness doesn't need words, that history isn't something you observe, it's something you walk through, step by step, breath by breath. Why this story matters: survival doesn't require bravery, it requires adaptation. Our pilgrim wasn't a hero. They didn't fight battles or slay dragons. They asked questions. They listened. They changed. In your life today, adapting to hardship, to change, to unexpected shifts can be more powerful than trying to force a change or stand out. Stories are bridges we build to survive. In medieval England, stories were currency. Today, your story is how people see you. In interviews, in social media, in intimate conversations, a well-framed narrative can open doors, build understanding, and protect you from misunderstanding. Language is a tool, not a weapon. Words shape perception. When the pilgrim chose silence over error, they chose safety. In modern life, choosing your words carefully, especially in tense situations, can make all the difference. Listening may be more powerful than speaking. Small acts of kindness matter. A loaf of bread, a nod of trust, a shared piece of cloth, these were the pilgrim's lifelines. In your world, small gestures, compliments, thank yous, holding the door accumulate. They build connection in a world that often rewards the loud, not the kind. Belonging doesn't require perfection. The pilgrim never fully belonged to Lavina, but they belonged enough. You don't have to be flawless to find your place. You just need consistency, respect, and authenticity. Applying the lesson to your life. Pause before speaking. Like the pilgrim, silence can be your armor. Think before you use your words. Is this empathetic? Is this helpful? Or could it cause misunderstanding? Build trust with actions, not just words. Show up reliably, whether at work, with family, or in community. Let your actions speak louder than your promises. Remember the power of small gestures, a compliment to a stranger, offering help to someone struggling. These are your daily heroic moments. Embrace adaptability. Life rarely goes as planned. Learn to adjust quietly, like the pilgrim did. Bend, don't break. Share your story carefully. Your past is part of you, but your narrative can shape your present. Frame your experiences in ways that connect rather than divide. A question for you now, that you've followed this journey through fear, silence, loss, and quiet belonging. What stands out most to you? Which lesson resonates? Do you think resilience comes more from silence or action? Reply A. If you believe adapting and listening is more powerful. Reply B. If you think bold action and speaking out make the biggest impact, share your answer below in the comments, and feel free to explain why you chose it. Let's learn from each other's perspectives. If this story moved you, made you think, or helped you see something new about yourself or your world, please subscribe. Your support inspires more content that helps us reflect, feel, and grow through history and human stories.